Greetings, Albany area schools, community families, students and staff. I hope everyone is doing well on this Friday, August 14th. This is Superintendent Greg Johnson with the school district update. Little different twist today with our update, a video version with a slideshow presentation with the latest information regarding our school district reopening plans. I know this is a test of everyone's patience and flexibility, and people are yearning for a decision. And I hear you loud and clear, and we're close. And I know districts in the state are making those decisions. We're close in Stearns County. The issue for us right now is all of us are looking at COVID-19 metrics data. That's really the biggest piece of making this decision. And in Stearns County, our numbers are very close to a bubble where we can either have our students in person 100% or in a hybrid model. And we know from our families and survey results that people would like students in school 100%. So we're shooting for that goal. And I believe taking one more week to look at the Stearns County data that we could have a good chance of reopening our schools 100%. So thanks again for your patience. I hope this slideshow will help you better understand where we're at and how that decision will be made. We'll have this information on our website for you to access. And like always, if you have any questions for our school district leaders, please reach out to us and let us know. This is our school district's plan for returning to learning as of August 14th. There's a lot of information here. I promise you I will not read it word for word. It's based on some guiding principles that begin first and foremost with the health and safety of our students and staff as we create these plans. It is based strongly on best practice, and it's been done collaboratively. And I'm really proud of the work of our buildings, our 4 schools, and the think tank teams of staff that have been engaged since June working on these plans. And I think you'll see that it's well thought out. And the last guiding principle is that we know that we need to be responsive, and this plan needs to be dynamic because it will need to change as the landscape of COVID-19 throughout the course of this year is likely to change. It's based on 4 focus areas, and I'll begin first of all with our operations and start with face coverings. I know that face coverings is a controversial topic throughout the country. It's not something that schools get to debate. We need to adhere to the governor's executive order, and all of our students, staff, employees, including transportation, people need to wear face coverings. And if we want and hope and expect our schools to remain open, this is one way we're going to be able to make that happen. Important details about the face coverings here. You can see that they need to cover the nose and mouth. We've been provided one cloth face mask and some disposable face masks from the state. We also have a large supply of our own disposable masks, so we can work with families if they do not have access to masks, but we're assuming in a lot of cases that people will supply their own cloth face covering. People can have a medical exemption from a face covering, but it does need to be certified by a physician. Our staff have really talked a lot, and the schedules you'll see are reflective of breaks throughout the day where students will be able to remove the face coverings. Obviously, during breakfast and lunch, we are really going to work hard to get our students outside while at school, and any type of physical activity mask can be removed. And we've had students coming into our schools since the end of June for different types of activities, and since the executive order has been in place, our students have done a really nice job adhering to that. Reporting symptoms and exposure, of course, we expect parents to keep us up to speed on any symptoms, any diagnoses that we need to be aware of. We will be screening students and staff prior to getting on the bus and entering our school buildings. We have technology in place to help us do that in an effective way and an orderly way, so it's not as time consuming as I think some of us think it might be. Anyone experiencing COVID-19 symptoms will need to be sent home and comply with any quarantine requirements that have been set in place by the Department of Health and our policies. And really a good thing to really keep in mind too with our nursing staff, it will be a very busy year for them, and those minor complaints and simple injuries, we'll likely do our best to take care of those in classrooms if we can. All of us are aware of the symptoms, but do want to include that in our slideshow because they have changed quite a bit over the course of the past 4 to 5 months. Visitors to our buildings, we are limiting the number of non-essential visitors within our schools. Only students and staff should be present in our school. We will limit access for visitors only to our main entrance and office areas. If people are indoors and are visiting, and if it's a specific meeting that people need to be there for, of course, they need to have a face covering. And make sure that they also are free of any COVID-19 symptoms. And of course, we're going to work hard, and we have a lot of practice already since the spring on doing the virtual meetings and electronic communications if we can do that as much as possible. Transportation, needless to say, has been a little bit of a challenge to navigate through. And we are following the state guidelines that we can have our buses at 50% capacity. That will be a challenge for us to do. But based on initial survey results from our families, we really appreciate everyone's effort to try your best if you can to have your child walk to school, drive to school if they can, or drop them off at school. And right now we're working on putting those transportation routes together. And if you haven't done it already, click on this link and fill out our school district transportation form. If you haven't filled it out, we won't know if you need the transportation. You can see here, we'll have hand sanitizers on our buses. We will be screening students as they come onto buses. We'll have paraprofessionals riding most of our buses, and they will be cleaned thoroughly between routes. Inside our building, our physical space is obviously a very thorough plan. If you look at our blueprint on our website, it's very specific to the frequency of cleaning inside our schools to prevent the spread. We've done a lot of work to arrange our spaces so that we can adhere to physical distancing, social distancing guidelines as much as possible. We'll have floor markings, we'll have plexiglass in places, signage, and we've removed a lot of non-essential furniture to create that space. We've tested our ventilation systems to make sure that we're bringing in the optimum amount of fresh air from outside as well. Quite a bit of staff training and expectations lie ahead for our students and our staff. And our staff, as we transition to the start of the school year, we'll have that training take place. We also know that we will continue to adhere to those face mask guidelines, checking for symptoms, limiting group gatherings, and being able to shift to distance learning if COVID numbers change. And we'll be spending quite a bit of time at the beginning of the year with all of our students going through those health and safety expectations. Handling a suspected or confirmed COVID-19 case, there's quite a bit of information from the Department of Health and CDC to guide us in that decision-making process. We know that we will separate, and we have designated locations in all of our sites. If someone has symptoms or tests positive and is at school, they will be in an isolation area until they will be picked up by a parent. We notify the Department of Health and our regional support center in St. Cloud when we do have suspected or confirmed cases. A single standalone case, we know we will have COVID-19 likely at some point in our buildings, but that doesn't necessarily constitute a shift to distance learning or closing our schools. We will work with our regional teams and the Department of Health to make those decisions, do the contact tracing that's needed, and follow the guidelines that are in place. And if we exceed our 5% quota or number of students that would test positive, then we would be looking at shifts to distance learning. School meals will continue, and we will follow the guidelines set aside by the CDC and MDH. We will be serving breakfast in classrooms, And for lunch, quite a bit of students will need to be eating lunch in classrooms. Some will be able to eat in our cafeterias, but again, that's really based on schedules and our ability to social distance. If we are in a hybrid learning model and students are distance learning, we will have meal plans in place to get meals to families like we did last spring. Instructional plans. We know that there are three main scenarios of possible learning plans for the school year, and our target has been to get all of our students back in person at the elementary. That means all of our students will remain in their homeroom pods. The specialists like music, art, and phy ed will actually come to the classrooms for instruction. We will utilize outdoor spaces as much as possible and deliver library books to students and really try to restrict that movement within all of our buildings. The middle school students will remain in advisory groups as much as possible, and at the high school in their PAWS advisory groups. And of course, at the high school, there's really no way to follow a schedule without having some transition of students and following a schedule. So we have hallways that have been designated one-way directional to reduce congestion, and we will be allowing students to carry backpacks back and forth as lockers will not be available. The second scenario was the hybrid model, and one really positive thing of our planning for the hybrid model is we've been able to, through some staffing changes and really looking at our space closely, that even in a hybrid model and having to meet the 50% capacity in our spaces and 6-foot social distancing, we can do that in grades K through 5 and still have all of our students attending school. So if we're in scenario 1 or 2 as a hybrid model, it won't impact students in grades pre-K through grade 5. They will continue to come to school every day. It will impact our students in grades 6 through 12 if we shift to a hybrid schedule. And that will look like this schedule right here, where we have a cohort A and a cohort B, Mondays and Tuesdays. Primarily for cohort A, they are at school in person and then distance learn the rest of the week. Cohort B distance learns the beginning half of the week, and then they are in person at school Thursdays and Fridays. There's a specific hybrid schedule that we will have out early next week, so you can see what cohort you've been assigned to, as well as the specific days that your child will be in school or distance learning. There will be, when students are distance learning, we use the term asynchronous learning and synchronous learning. So there will be times when the students are at home that they will be tapped into the classroom live. We have microphones and cameras so that students will be able to get live time instruction while distance learning. And next week, our buildings will be sending out very specific details for you regarding what these plans look like in the elementary, middle, and high schools. Distance learning, if we shift to the scenario 3 and it's like last spring, we are distance learning or learning from home at the elementary. Again, we will have a lot of live time synchronous instruction, as well as some times where it's asynchronous and students are working on their own. A lot of social emotional learning taking place and interwoven throughout the day, and student attendance will be taken on a regular basis. Middle school will have a set schedule to follow with quite a bit of live instruction on a daily basis. And the high school, the same thing, an adjusted block schedule where there will be live instruction and attendance taking place every day. We do have some families that have chosen distance learning regardless of what our plan is. That is a requirement of the state that be offered, and those families who will be distance learning will be able to have at least 3 to 4 hours of instruction daily. And again, they will also be able to tune in live to the classroom through cameras and microphones. And that information, again, will be coming out from schools specifically to each family. Daily attendance is required. And you can see with the elementary and secondary some slight differences in what that instruction will look like. Special education decisions will be made by IEP teams It's essential we have ongoing and systematic communication taking place and doing our best with the space that we have and the requirements with social distancing and masking that we adhere to those as we work to meet the needs of our students. We've heard loud and clear through our surveys and our staff and our families that the social emotional needs of our students are at the forefront of what we'll do. And I know our teachers as we begin the school year, and that's part of why we're doing the entrance conferences on September 8th and 9th, is to be able to build those relationships and connections so that students are ready to start school and feel comfortable starting school. How we determine our learning scenarios is really determined by the state. This is a statement that comes right out of the Minnesota Safe School Plan that talks about our decision is based on a 14-day window of COVID cases per 10,000 people in a county. We will work with Stearns County and review that data daily. And we know that we have some targets to look at to try to get to. And you can see here down on this chart, here's the calculation of how we land on our 14-day case rate range. Right now it's just over 11, which puts us in that second band, which is all of our elementary students in person and our middle and high school students in a hybrid. And because we're at 11, we're really close to this 0 to 10 range, which would allow us to have students in person 100% K through 12. So that's why we're taking that extra week to be able to make a decision and see where our COVID-19 numbers land. As I mentioned, as of today, right now, we're at 11.54. And if we had to make a decision today, it would need to be the elementaries here and the middle and high school is hybrid. The final date, we will review our numbers again next week on Thursday, and by Friday, the next day, we will select our fall learning model to start the school year and share that with you and share that with the state. We have an incident command team in our district that includes school board members, the superintendent, teachers, support staff, students, and some parents. And this team I'll work with closely as we make that decision. I'm actually meeting with them next week, Thursday afternoon, to review the latest data and to help guide in making that decision to see if we are in person or in the hybrid model. I want to point out especially our school district calendar was adapted and changed here to help us effectively meet the requirements of our Minnesota State Safe Learning Plan and ensure that we can meet the health and safety of our students. So some changes were made at the school board meeting this past week, and we added, and I think we gave you forewarning about the mandatory entrance conferences on September 8th and 9th. So we pushed back the start of the school year to September 10th. And families will be receiving information next week on how they can register for these mandatory face-to-face conversations with staff members to be able to hear the latest information again and be able to ask questions of our staff. We've also we've eliminated the Friday early outs that we've had the last several years, and we've replaced it with 4 at-home learning days. And there'll be one day in October, one day in November, and one in December, and one in January. And those 4 days will kind of take the place of the early outs that we've had. There'll be e-learning days for students, at-home learning days for students, so they will have work to do those days, but it will be days that our staff will be able to take care of some of the professional requirements that we have in place, allow us to deep clean our schools and prepare for the school year. We did make a change that I think families will appreciate with no school on December 23rd or February 11th. We will have the updated new calendar on our website by Monday. Programs and activities and events. The high school league certainly has been impacted by the COVID decision-making and the state safe plans that have been in place. We know that we've shifted some of our seasons from the fall to the spring. We'll be able to conduct some practices throughout the year and again, really be guided by what the state decides for us. We will have specific plans for activities in grades 7 through 12 that will be coming out soon. We are canceling all of our field trips at this point in time. And of course, if we can resume school in person, we'll make sure that we have as many of our clubs and activities like NHS and FFA, et cetera, that are in place as long as we continue to physically distance and have safety measures in place. Some documents that you can link to on our website are from the state, the CDC, Stearns County, and our own school district blueprint for reopening. It's a very specific health and safety plan for our schools. If you have questions, please reach out to me, reach out to your child's building principal. We will keep you up to date as quickly as we can and anticipate a decision next week and communicate it with you regarding the start of the school year plans. Thank you for tuning into this school district update. I hope you found the information beneficial. I know there's quite a bit of information here. Please refer to our website on the main page, COVID-19, for more details and updates. Information will continue to be loaded to that site next week. Know too that next week our building principals in all 4 buildings will be sending you specific information regarding school reopening plans for your building. So watch your email, watch closely for that additional information. I also know that our principals, all 4 principals next week, will be hosting Facebook Live sessions for families to be able to tune in and ask questions and hear the latest information regarding our plans. Our final decision will be made next week, Thursday and Friday, and we'll get that information out to you. Again, I can't thank you enough for your patience and flexibility as we work through this process of reopening our schools. Have a good day.